so far to go.
Hey guys, this is Jarbo Gaming back with some more Flyout. Since my last video, I've been having a ton of fun with the game, trying to learn the ins and outs of the editor. I still have a long way to go, but I feel like I'm starting to get a better feel of how things work, especially after working on the aircraft in this video. After previously having a go at making a single engine fighter, I decided to see how I would fare in creating something with two engines. My first twin engine design was pretty basic, and I had a little bit of fun messing around with some fancy thrust vectoring nozzles. It performed pretty well, but I found it a bit bland. Everything was just so symmetrical. I was determined to make something that would outdo my first creation in looks, armament, fuel capacity, and more. After all, what's the point of having a super cruise capable fighter if you only have 20 minutes worth of fuel? I started off by adding in my main center fuselage, as well as two additional fuselages for the engines. As far as engine performance was concerned, I was aiming for something with performance that was in the neighborhood of the engines equipped on the F-18, which this build was definitely inspired by, but it's by no means a replica. I wanted a pair of engines that were slightly more efficient than my last build, but still wanted to have the capability to break Mach 1.5 at a minimum. Knowing what I know now, I would have approached this build somewhat differently, and I think I made some parts of it quite a bit harder than they needed to be. You can see me square up the front of the intakes here using the blend tool. General fuselage shape begins to develop, and we start to go from a circle to something that somewhat resembles the shape of an aircraft hull. This was my first experience in trying to blend a fuselage across parts in a way that would look somewhat seamless. It definitely took a bit of trial and error to get right, but in the end, I was pretty content with the result. I go to add the wings on here, but realize the fuselage extending to a single point isn't going to work. A bit of thickness is going to be needed to be added to the edge for this to look anywhere close to right. This requires me to reshape some other portions of the hull due to the way vertex points connect from one section to another. While I'm at it, I work on my first attempt at a leading edge extension up to the cockpit, as well as some general shaping. The cockpit canopy comes next. We shrink the front section of the plane on the vertical axis, as I felt it was a little bit too tall overall. The edges get cleaned up before it's time to finally attach and shape the wings. Elevators come next, followed by slightly slanted vertical stabilizers. The nose of the aircraft gets shortened and reworked a bit, as I felt it was just too long. Some touching up takes place off screen to smooth out some of the edges, as well as more overall shortening of the front section of the aircraft. I refine the shape of the elevators and angle the edges of them down a little in order to slightly lower our overall center of lift before doing some similar refinement to the stabilizers. After adding a snazzy paint job, landing gear, and some other small details, not much is left besides closing off the rear of the aircraft. We add a complement of weapons, 4 air-to-ground missiles and 2 air-to-air missiles, as well as 2 drop tanks for extra fuel. It's time to see what this thing can do. We're sitting on the runway here in our twin-engine aircraft that looks like a F-18, although it's not exactly an exact replica. It's definitely inspired by it though. Let's go ahead and throttle up, take off, and see what she can do. A little bit of yaw to the left to keep her straight going down the runway here. I'm gonna go ahead and pull up. Flaps up, trim the nose up a little bit, and we're just gonna back off the afterburner. Back off a little bit more here. Afterburner is at 80%. So one thing I'm curious about with this craft is whether or not it is super cruise capable. Definitely has a much heavier loadout than our previous one that was, as well as more fuel. So let's see if she is capable of super cruising. We're accelerating fairly quick here, and a slight climb. Gonna bump the throttle up to just shy of the afterburners. We're slowly creeping up to Mach 0.9 here. Mach 0.95. It's looking like it's going to be really close. 0.98, 0.99, and Mach 1. So we still are super cruise capable, which tells me I probably could do a little bit of work to make the engines more efficient. That really wasn't a goal of mine, super cruising that is. I just wanted to have something that had a little bit more range compared to my last craft. But there still is a little bit of wiggle room there to play with as far as efficiency. I could even add some more fuel to this that could, give us further range and slow us down a little bit with its weight. Let's go ahead and bring it back around for a landing, and we'll bring her to a stop and then take off again before we test out some of the weapons here. Which, as you can see, we have 4 air-to-ground missiles and 2 air-to-air missiles, as well as the cannon on the front. Gonna bring it back around to the runway over there. Have about half fuel left in our external tanks. Been having a bit of fun messing around with the fly-by-wire settings. I was looking at some of the default craft that come with the game that were created by the developer, kind of using those as a baseline, and the fly-by-wire definitely can make aircraft much more controllable. I would say this one flies much better than my previous single-engine fighter. I think a lot of that is due to the fly-by-wire settings that have kind of tuned in a little bit more. We're going to back off the throttle a little bit here. This is not how you want to approach a runway. A 10G turn into a runway is never optimal. Gonna drop the flaps for a little bit of added drag. I still have not gotten around to trying to make an air brake or landing gear bay doors for that matter, but that's gonna be coming soon. Gonna drop the gear here. Just come around a little bit to the right. Gonna back off the throttle completely. Just above the ground, there we go, brakes on. We're a little off the runway there, but that's okay. And a pretty quick stop on the runway, so not too shabby. Not my best landing by any means, but we're in one piece, so let's go ahead and throttle back up and take off, and we will test out some of the weapon systems. Flaps back up. Trim the nose back down. We've got just a little bit of fuel left in those, so we'll be able to drop those off soon. Gonna back off the afterburner here, and let's see if we can take out a tank. So we've got a tank spawned in here, 30 kilometers away, so we're gonna go ahead and turn that way. Not sure what the exact range on the air-to-ground missiles are. It's something I'll have to mess around with a little bit while I'm not recording, but we'll get fairly close before seeing if we can destroy it. Might as well pin that over there to make things a little bit easier on ourselves. As you can see, we have a lock indicated by the green square there. 17 kilometers in closing. I'm gonna go on the mouse aim here to kind of gently bring the nose down. Just let me know down below if you know if there's a way to increase sensitivity while in mouse aim. We're gonna fire at 7 kilometers here. There's one away. Let's see if that makes contact. Looks like that will. Yep, one tank down. I'll pull up here. And we're going to go ahead and spawn in another over the mountains over there. A little late on dropping our tanks, but we're going to go ahead and do that now. Overall, I was pretty happy with the way this came out. One thing I did run into with this, if you haven't noticed yet, is I ran into a bit of an issue with the way a couple of my vertex points on my holes connect. As you can see right here and right here. I've double checked and verified that both of those loops are set to a offset of X, or I'm sorry, an offset of 0 on the X-axis. They are perfectly aligned in the editor, and X mirroring is on. And for the life of me, I could not figure out how to get these points to connect correctly. Haven't run into an issue like that on any other build that I've done. I don't know if it's just a bug or something that I'm just missing. But yeah, I know it was a bit disappointing because it definitely affects the look of it if you're paying attention. The look over here on the left side of the craft, that was what I was going for, and just for whatever reason over here, even though the vertex points are mirrored, they do not mirror correctly. So I'm not sure exactly what's going on here, and we're pretty close to our target. We're going to go ahead and drop the nose down and let a missile go. Not sure if I had locked there when I fired. We're going to fire one more. And another tank down. Got one anti-ground missile left. Gonna go ahead and spawn in another tank. We definitely have more fuel capacity here, as you can see, even at 70% throttle. We've got 40 minutes in the air. When we bump into the afterburner, that time does drop down, but it is still definitely better than my previous craft, which I think could only run afterburner for around 4 minutes or so. Obviously, that time is going to increase when you gain altitude. Closing in on our target here. 14 kilometers to go. Go ahead and drop the nose here. And a missile away. We'll see if that makes contact. Not sure where our aircraft is here. Oh, that is the wrong tank we're looking at, so I'm pretty sure we just missed that. Oh, my apologies on missing that one. That was my bad. Alright, let's see if we can spawn in some air targets here. Target drone in. Ooh, it spawned it in pretty close to us. So we're going to throttle up and pull hard on the stick. Pretty decent turn radius. The IR missiles definitely have shorter range, so we're going to get in fairly close here before we let loose our shot. Missile away. Alright, one drone down. Let's spawn in another. Oh, there's the other one right there. And Fox 2. Let's see if that makes contact. And it does. Alright, so we were able to down both some ground targets and some air targets. Let's see what this craft is capable of as far as top speed is concerned. We're going to bring it up to around 20,000 feet for this testing. Be interested to see if this is able to go that far past Mach 2. We shall see here in a moment. And try to gently bring the nose down as we get to 20K. Little negative G's won't hurt our pilot too much. And here we go. Accelerating fairly quickly, but definitely not the fastest. We've got a little bit of wobble there. We're gonna turn off mouse flight. Looks like that was caused by our fly-by-wire, so we're gonna toggle that off, and the wobble is gone. I know, this is definitely our fly-by-wire. It does not like these high speeds, so we're just gonna fly without it. And we're going past Mach 2 here. We're really chewing through our fuel. So we're gonna call it Mach 2.2 just due to fuel constraints. We're gonna turn back around. Turn the fly-by-wire back on, and bring her back around for a landing. So overall, I was pretty happy with the way the build came out, with the exception of the way the vertex points didn't connect correctly on this hole. I don't know if that was just user error or a bug. Don't know if anyone else has reported an issue like that, so I'm thinking maybe it was something I did wrong. Although again, I did check and make sure everything was zeroed out on the x-axis, and X mirroring was on. Definitely learned some things that we're going to carry forward into the next build. How to create sections in your fuselage that match, for instance, to close off this back section of the fuselage here. That's going to be something I take with me when I actually start trying to mess around with building some cockpits. As you can see, this one I haven't done any modeling of the inside of the cockpit, but that's something that I do want to eventually get to. I do believe that is the airfield over there. Definitely has a bit more pep with the lighter load. Yep, so there's the runway. Some real nice vapor trails there. Gonna back off the throttle as we bleed some speed before we bring this thing to a landing. Get up on the throttle a little bit here. Don't want to stall out before we make it to the runway. We're also not quite centered. It's a little bit better. We'll see if we can keep it on the runway this time. A little bit rough, but successful. So yeah, overall pretty happy with the design. Looking forward to building some more craft in the future and seeing how we can improve upon the next build. Thanks for stopping by. Hope you enjoyed. I really think the game has great potential, and in the future, I may even explore creating some aircraft from fictional universes such as Ace Combat or Mobile Suit Gundam. The possibilities are really endless. Let me know your thoughts on Flyout down below. This is Jarbo Gaming. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you on the next one.